Okay, perfect. So again, good evening, good afternoon. I am Stefania Petrosillo, the Policy Officer of EUROPARC Federation, and also the person in charge of Transboundary Parks program. With this webinar, we are thinking to start a series of webinars about cross-border cooperation and marine conservation. I will share my screen with you for a few slides about the event of today, and then I will start my first presentation. First of all, thanks to everyone to be here with us. The typical question, I hope you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay, perfect. Presentation mode. Okay. So thank you again. Few information about EUROPARC Federation, that is the largest network of European protected areas, and a member of our federation are all sorts of protected areas. We have about 400 members, but indeed we represent much more protected areas, because our members can be institutions that manage more than one protected area. So indeed we represent thousands of protected areas, parks, regional and regional parks, marine protected areas, Natura 2000 sites, and so on. We have 3 offices, and the headquarters is in Germany, in Regensburg, and we have an office here in Brussels, where I am today. We have also several national or international sections. We work on natural protection, but not only. We work on all topics that are connected and necessary to better protect nature. So agriculture, marine, fishing, tourism, climate change, and so on, and indeed cross-border cooperation. Some few information for today. We are recording, so if you agree, put your camera on if it's possible. So also for speakers, it's better to see your face if it's possible, of course. Use the chat for your questions. My colleague Esther, that's kindly with us today, helping me in managing this event, she will check the chat. The speakers will answer at the end of their presentations. Everything will be recorded. Also the presentations will be recorded and published in our website. At the end, please don't leave without filling in the evaluation form of this webinar. We will put the link in the chat. Thank you again, and comments and suggestions are always very welcome. So the agenda of today, this is my welcome. Then I will start to present quickly our program to support transboundary parks and their work. Then we will listen Costanza Favilli, the Secretary of the Pelagos Sanctuary, and she will share with us her experience in the management of Pelagos Sanctuary for Mediterranean marine mammals. That is a very interesting and complex reality between France, Italy, and Monaco. Then we will be very interested to listen from the European Commission DG ENV, Mr. Vedran Nikolic, about some inputs and reactions from the Commission, and especially the work that they are doing to support marine conservation. time for questions and time for the debate, and a very short conclusion. The idea is to have at least 1 hour, 1 hour and a half maximum together. So if you don't have any issue, any questions, burning questions, I will start immediately with my presentation on my program. I hope it's okay for you. I don't see your faces, but I will start. So the EUROPARC Transboundary Park program has been created starting from 3 considerations. Nature doesn't know borders, but often the communities don't know borders neither. Often administrative borders share villages or separate communities that have a common history. And there is a very interesting potentiality to develop in a traditional and new way economical opportunities on cross-border territories. For that, EUROPARC decided to take into account all benefits and challenges that the protected areas that share a common border have to deal with. Of course, transboundary cooperation among 2 parks that are on border is very interesting to reach a more efficient management, for the parks to have more visibility, also to influence reciprocally, if possible, policies and planning on the area. Again, new opportunities for local development. For the staff of the parks, it's very important, very interesting to share their experience, to speak together. That increase a lot their motivation, open new horizons, and of course, increase knowledge and experiences. For the public, for the people living in the area, it's very interesting also to be aware about the responsibilities to be in a border region, and to work together definitely helps to build a mutual understanding between communities. And also in some way working for peace. And I don't open any comment about that, but we are absolutely aware how important is always, and especially today, working for peace. And working in cooperation means also build our European Union and our Europe continent in general. But to work together is very challenging also, because it's necessary the political will, the political support, and often if the political situation change, if it's unstable, also the possibility to work together can have difficulties. Of course, the fact that the 2 parks have to deal with the different legal framework is very complicated for them, and especially if the border is with a nation that is not in Schengen area, because that means to have really a border much more stronger than inside the Schengen area. For the staff, can be also difficult sometimes because of the language, because of the time. Sometimes we know that to work together is more time consuming than to do everything alone. And in general, working together can be also, it's necessary to have more funds, more money, even if working together can also open new opportunities for new funds. But definitely the money topic is it's important. And about people, sometimes we see that history and we know that very well, can create a very difficult memory to overcome between the local communities. So taking into account all this, EUROPARC created this program, Transboundary Parks Following Nature Design, that is a special verification and certification system that aims to promote and facilitate transboundary cooperation between European protected areas. So the program is composed by a series of standards. Criteria means more or less institutional criteria. So we ask parks to have a common management or coordinated management plans. We ask them to have official agreements of cooperation and so on. And field of works means to work on nature protection, but also on other fields, culture, tourism, economical, other initiatives, and so on. The parks asked EUROPARC to be verified, so we send a verification, a verifiers on the field. And with this mission, we start an evaluation process. It's very important for this part, the recommendations that the different steps, the verifier on the field and the commission of evaluation in the desk part of the process, the recommendations that they will identify for the parks, because the role of EUROPARC is not simply to certify you are good, you are not good, but really to support our members to improve their work. This is very, very important. Then, if everything goes well, there is the formal certification as a EUROPARC Transboundary area. And then we have the award ceremony. And indeed, next week, during the conference of EUROPARC in France, we will have a new award ceremony. And one new park and 3 other parks will be reevaluated. And in fact, the reevaluation is each 5 years, because the process must be in continuous improvement. Something important for EUROPARC is that this program is part of the services that we provide to our members. So to be candidate as a transboundary park is necessary to be EUROPARC member. This is the map of our network called Transpark Net. And here you can see the candidate Scarpesco Plains European Park between Belgium and France. They received today the confirmation that their candidature has been approved. So we have at the moment 13 certified transboundary areas in 30 countries. So if you want to know more about our members, please surf in our network, in our website. So, what is the aim of the Transpark Net is to provide assistance, reciprocal assistance, to facilitate capacity building, to coordinate a task force and thematic working groups that support the directorate, organize staff visit, so on, organize events, conference, webinars, workshops, publish information on transboundary issues, work on database and case studies, and to promote the interest and the work of transboundary parks at national, European, international level, and of course work together to look for funds and projects to support our work. The network meets once per year And next year will be in German-Dutch Nature Park Maas-Schwalm-Nette. And each year we discuss about a specific topic. On our website, you can find all information about the previous TransParkNet. We also have some documents that we publish to present our values. And one was in a declaration for the 3rd anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And we also contributed to the conference on the future of Europe. I just want to close, mention that really this network is very active, fantastically motivated, and it's really a pleasure to work with them. We learn a lot reciprocally. If you want to know more about our work, these are at the website, and of course I am full at your disposal for any additional questions today or later by email. Okay, that was my presentation. I don't know if, I hope I was clear. I don't know if there is already some request of clarifications. Esther, you don't see anything?
No,
okay.
Nothing so far, but maybe it will come later.
Okay, perfect. So, Costanza, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us. And we are really looking forward to listening your very interesting experience.
Thank you, Stefania. I am Costanza Favilli, the Executive Secretary of the Pelagos Agreement. I'm really glad to be here with you today, and I will thank EUROPARC and particularly Stefania for this kind invitation today. Probably some of you already know the sanctuary and the agreements. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Here is the Pelagos Sanctuary. So the Pelagos Agreement was signed in 1999 between France, Italy, and Monaco, and came into force in 2002, thereby creating the Pelagos Sanctuary, which is the only international transboundary area dedicated to the protection of marine mammals and their habitat in the Mediterranean Sea. And since its creation, the sanctuary has been recognized as a special protected area of Mediterranean interest by the parties of the Barcelona Convention. Next slide, please. As I was saying, the Pelagos Agreement is a precursor of the Maritime Special Planning and the pilot area of the ACOBAMS. It was created in order to improve conservation by assessing and managing the impact of humans on the species and the habitat of marine mammals. And the objective of the agreement is to strengthen multilateral cooperation in carrying out conservation activities and to ensure that each party applies the provision with their own territory, of course. But what are the species that we are referring to? Next slide are the species of the Pelagos Sanctuary. So originally the area was identified to be particularly rich of pelagic charismatic cetacean species such as the fin whale, the Cuvier's beaked whale, the sperm whale, and the pilot whale. Next slide, please. So on the screen, you can see the species regularly observed in the sanctuary and how they are classified in the IUCN Red List. We have bottlenose dolphins, rhesus dolphins, striped dolphins, common dolphin, and next slide, please. Of course, pilot whale and the monk seal. And the monk seal is a marine mammal which disappeared from the sanctuary, but it was recently observed in Tuscany. So we hope that this is a positive sign and a good starting point for his return in the area. But why do we need a transboundary governance to manage and protect those species? Because, of course, we are dealing with migratory species. For example, in the Mediterranean Sea, there is only one population of fin whale, and it moves within a very large area. So we should think about transboundary tools, about transboundary methods if we really want to have an impact on the conservation of these species. Next slide, please. So the importance of the Pelagos Sanctuary, of course, is about it's about marine mammals, but it's the importance of, it's a broader importance. It's the importance of the ecosystem, which is really rich and can count on a very extraordinary biodiversity. And even in the area of the Pelagos Sanctuary, there are so many, I would say, institution, organisms that help the area to be efficient in many different ways. There are many marine protected areas. There are EBSAs, which are ecologically or biologically significant marine areas. There are 3 SPAMIs. As I said, the SPAMIs are the specially protected areas of Mediterranean importance recognized by the Barcelona Convention. There are many Natura 2000 sites, and all these organisms are overlapping, but at the same time, the work of each of them is so important, and it's so it works in a very complementary way with the activities of the Pelagos Agreement, of course. Next slide, please. So we said the objectives of the agreement, it's about transboundary governance, it's about transboundary measures, it's about multilateral cooperation, and it's about guaranteeing the existence of the coexistence of the human impact of in this area with the well-being of the marine mammal species. You can see at the screen many threats. Pollution, noise, ship strike, and fishing are the ones for which the agreement was originally created for. Next slide, please. So how does it work? How does the agreement work? You have at the screen the general organization chart of the agreements. I will start with the working groups because the work of the working groups is essential for the life of the agreement. The working groups meet and discuss subjects and priorities identified by the parties, and their role it's a very complementary role with the Pelagos Secretariat, because the working groups help the Secretariat to, in the implementation of the activities identified by the work plan. We have a biannual work plan. This year we have the work plan 2022-2023, and so we have a list of activities identified by the parties, and some of them should be implemented by the working groups and the permanent secretariat. Next slide, please. Here you can see how the working groups can interact with the other bodies of the agreement, with the meeting of the parties, with the permanent secretariat. We have, as you can see, a working group on governance, a working group on law, a working group on the assessment of species, a working group on impacts, a working group on communication, and a working group on marine protected areas and SPAMIs. And I would, if you are interested in joining this working group, you can still do that. The working group were created at the beginning of the year. Some of them are already were activated at the beginning of the year. Some of them are finalizing their constitution. But anyway, if you, for example, would like to join the working group on MPAs and SPAMI, you can do so, and you can just notify your will to join the group to the permanent secretariat. And the working group are composed by experts. They are composed by representatives of different institutions. So everybody is welcome. They are open working group, and this is a very important point for the agreement, to let everyone give its own contribution to the management plan and to the action plan of the Pelagos agreement. So next slide, please. The work of the working group is presented to the Technical and Scientific Committee. The evaluation of the Technical and Scientific Committee is translated in a recommendation, and it is presented at the meeting of the parties. Next slide, please. At the meeting of the parties of the Pelagos agreement. Of course, the meeting of the parties of the Pelagos agreement is the decisional body of the agreement, called on to approve the recommendation taken by the Scientific and Technical Committee. The meeting of the parties should define the priorities of the agreement on the medium and the long terms. And of course, it's the meeting of the parties which approve the biennial work plan and the management plan via the resolutions. And it takes place every 2 years in the country which will take the chairmanship. And currently the chairmanship is held by Italy. Next slide, please. Yes, so in the framework of the agreement, there are binding measures and soft law measures. The binding measures are quite a few. Some of them are not implemented in the entire area of the sanctuary. So the real challenge for the agreement in the next years is really to harmonize the measures in and the legislation of the 3 countries for the protection of marine mammals. But this is the work of the governments and in the frame of the agreement. And we have also very special measures. I call them soft law measures, which are very, very effective because because people or actors, different stakeholders can apply to this measure on a voluntary basis. And sometimes we think that voluntary measures are not effective, are not good in some way. And this is not true, absolutely not true. The experience of the Pelagos agreement learned something different. Next slide, please. So among the participatory opportunities offered in the framework of the Pelagos agreement, we must mention the Pelagos Partnership Charter, because this charter aims at establishing cooperation between the agreement and the coastal municipalities located in the sanctuary. And all the municipalities are invited to join, as I said, on a voluntary basis. Why we would work with local authorities? Because as a matter of fact, local authorities are often involved in activities that can have a direct impact on marine mammals. For example, land-based pollution management and the first response in case of strandings. It's a responsibility of local actor, of municipalities. So it is very important for us to have a direct link with them and to work with them. As you can see by on the screen, as for the current membership status, almost all Italian municipalities have joined the charter. Corsica is the area where the charter must be further implemented and promoted. The difficulty in Corsica is that the municipalities are very small, so the French authorities are working on that, on the promotion of the Pelagos Charter, a partnership charter in Corsica. And this tool is very important for the agreement because it guarantees the opportunity to have a contact person in each municipality signing the partnership charter. So we have, yes, a contact person, a reference on the territory, which is something quite original, I would say, for international agreement. And finally, the municipalities, last point, the municipalities are the perfect tool for dissemination of the actions and for the implementation of the resolution of the Pelagos Agreement. So next slide, please. Over the last 10 years, many activities were carried out, mainly concerning communication and awareness raising events by the Permanent Secretariat and also in the framework of the Pelagos Partnership Charter. I don't know, now you can see the picture of a skeleton. This is the creation of the last information and the educational point called Biodiversity Observatory in Tuscany. It's a network, today it's a network of 10 information and educational points targeting citizens, tourists, and schools. We organize collection of marine litter and on beaches and seabeds, but also training session for the municipality's technical staff. And of course, the municipalities can give their contribution or participate in project, international project joined by the agreement as associated partners, for example, and of course, organization of conferences, screenings, and exhibitions. Next slide, please. Another tool, it's the Pelagos Ambassadors initiatives. The Pelagos Ambassador initiatives allows the users of the sea to adhere, commit, and disseminate the objectives of the Pelagos Agreement on a voluntary basis. The ambassadors commit themselves to respect the Pelagos Code of Conduct when citing marine mammals. And today we have more than 700 members, 700 ambassadors. Next slide, please. So the Pelagos Ambassador, it's an initiative that allows the permanent secretariat of the Pelagos Agreement, the agreement in general to promote the high quality whale watching certification, which is a certification for the activity of whale watching of ACOBAMS and Pelagos for the sustainable activity of whale watching. Of course, all these tools have are implemented, and they are periodically evaluated with the aim of making them increasingly effective. Next slide, please. And yes, this slide is about the management plan and action plan of the Pelagos Agreement. This is a very important and essential work for the parties of the agreement. This management plan was approved in December 2021, and it opened the agreement to the way of the agreement in a new phase and to a new modus operandi. There are many activities right now carried out by the working groups, and from the Secretariat point of view, we are implementing the creation of a Pelagos voluntary fund for the financial needs of the work plan of the Pelagos Agreement. As I said before, a big effort should be done from the point of view of the harmonization of the measures and procedures in the frame of the agreement. The parties has identified two priority themes, which are the Pelagos fights against pollution and Pelagos slow travel. And they are implementing these thematics on a national point of view, and they will inform in the frame of the agreement the other parties and partners about their activities on the subject. And of course, the network is very important. We count on the network and on the partnership. We have established a partnership with the MBPC community, and they are helping a lot the Pelagos Agreement reaching, carrying out some activities foreseen in the work plan. And of course, the mapping of the species and threats. This is a very important activity to be carried out by the working group on assessment. And of course, the initial assessment on species and pressures. Next slide, please. And this is a slide about one of the current team in the frame of the Pelagos Agreement, and a very important team in the Northwestern Mediterranean Sea in this moment, the creation of a particularly sensitive sea area. The Pelagos Agreement has given his own contribution in the creation of the documents presented to the IMO in July, and that will be discussed in next December. And this is a way to show also how the Pelagos Agreement can give its support to international processes in the area. The idea of the creation of a particularly sensitive sea area was created in the frame of Pelagos in 2013, and after that it was abandoned, and a few years ago, France asked the other parties to establish a new discussion about this theme, and now we have finalized this proposal, which include, of course, Spain, Monaco, France, and Italy for the entire area. And in last December, we organized a workshop for the involvement of the stakeholders and of maritime companies in order to give the create a good work document, which is today the document that is presented to the IMO. That's all. I hope that it wasn't not so long. It was just an overview, because in 15 minutes there is so much to say and to see, but probably it would be better if I can answer to some question. It would be more clear, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Costanza. Really, thank you very much. Thank you, Esther, for saving us with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Esther.
No, my computer was blocked, but okay, perfect. Really, very interesting experience, very complex, a lot of aspects to take into account in your work. And I see some questions are arriving. I'm sure that more questions will come. I leave the floor immediately to the Commission, the DG ENV, Mr. Vedran Nikolic, and for his reactions. Please, Vedran, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefania. I don't have a presentation, so at least I think we will not have technical problems. I hope you can hear me well. Thanks for inviting me. Good afternoon to everybody. It was my intention just to give a short reaction, of course, inspired by the example of the Pelagos Sanctuary, but to put it in the context of the EU biodiversity policy and of course, new initiatives that we are taking in this field under the European Green Deal. And well, Pelagos, certainly it can be an inspiration because it is the biggest transboundary marine protected area in the Mediterranean. And now it's actually whole in EU waters, although in the beginning it included a large part of international waters. Today, it is practically entirely in EU waters. And as it was mentioned, it actually encompasses many of the Natura 2000 sites established under EU legislation, but also other national marine protected areas and those under Barcelona Convention. So it means, yes, they can reinforce each other. The Pelagos can make a major contribution in delivering conservation results under EU policy and vice versa. And we know that the EU Habitats Directive strictly protects all marine mammals. So there is already a strong legal obligation for those countries that are parties, except Monaco, of course, for their conservation, not only in Pelagos Sanctuary, but in all waters, because we are talking about migratory species. And in fact, the EU environment policy, such as the Habitats Directive, but also Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and not only environmental policy, but also legislation in the area of fisheries or connected to maritime transport. These all can provide the regulatory and policy frameworks to really foster the actual implementation of concrete and long-term conservation measures in Pelagos as they were set as the aim when the agreement was signed. So I will take a look a bit into these opportunities to use EU legislation, because it's particularly important today when we have the wider context of the European Green Deal and we have new commitments made by European Union and member states under the biodiversity strategy for 2030, soon we will have the Convention of the Parties on Biological Diversity. So this is the biodiversity year. And in our strategy for Europe, we already committed to legally protect 30% of our seas, to strictly protect 10% of our EU seas, which are most sensitive. And the Commission already in June this year also proposed the new nature restoration law. This, if adopted, would be really a groundbreaking new legislation which aims to restore all ecosystems in need of restoration by 2050, including marine habitats, and to have already by 2030, 20% of our seas covered by restoration measures. So existing marine protected areas and those transboundary, such as Pelagos, will be really instrumental to reach all these ambitious goals that we have set together to do. But of course, marine protected areas, they can only contribute to these goals if they are effectively managed and if they are delivering concrete and tangible conservation results and benefits. And Pelagos, for example, if we take that very large MPA, it's one of the biggest ones that we have in Europe. It has well-established governance structures. So according to all the success factors that we know that make efficient MPAs, it has all prerequisites for effective management. Bearing in mind, of course, that effective management also means taking indeed all those necessary conservation measures and monitoring the result of those measures appropriately. And we have committed again in the EU to have by 2030 an effectively managed trans-European network of protected areas. This means really effectively tackling all the pressures to which protected species and habitats are exposed, to which these MPAs are exposed. Take, for example, the Pelagos. That means primarily addressing underwater noise, ship strikes, ship-generated pollution, or bycatch in fishing gear. And many solutions have been tested already in Pelagos, some of them supported by EU projects. But when you want to put in place concrete measures, not only in transboundary MPAs such as Pelagos, but when we are talking about marine conservation, these measures necessarily need cooperation, transboundary cooperation. For example, in this context of Pelagos, the measures to regulate maritime traffic, such as speed reductions or rerouting or declaring particularly sensitive sea areas, they need to be proposed to the International Maritime Organization. And this recent proposal that was mentioned for a PSSA, that's indeed the example of good practice and what this cooperation should and could deliver, not in Pelagos, but also in other such areas. And this should be really, this proposal should be pursued and effectively monitored. And these examples of good practice are essential to move the management of our European MPA network towards more effective network. Because animals and pressures, you said, they don't know borders. So we need this kind of cooperation, not only in the framework of transboundary MPAs, but for marine conservation in general. And there are many initiatives in the Mediterranean. There was recently a designation of the Spanish cetacean corridor by Spain, and together with Pelagos, that slowly but surely completes the protection landscape for marine mammals in at least in the Western Mediterranean. So these MPAs will really contribute to these restoration goals for marine ecosystems. But it will deliver not benefits just for marine mammals, but for broader ecosystems, for seabed, and eventually to our society. But to come back to the EU policy, in order to succeed, and since we are talking in this particular case also about the area which is under jurisdiction of EU member states, we wanted to emphasize that the EU tools and EU policies should be used fully, and that includes financial support for implementation of those policies. And we are offering today, I think, more funds than ever from EU budget for biodiversity. We have committed together with the countries that 10% of EU budget, which is 2 billion euros, should go directly to biodiversity by 2027. A lot of it will go through our LIFE program, which can be used also for managing transboundary protected areas. In the context of Mediterranean, we are contributing to the Barcelona Convention, of course, which does a lot of work in this area. And we will continue to offer this support. And we actually are engaged in bilateral dialogues on nature, including on marine conservation with France, with Italy, with Spain, but with all member states in the EU. So we are grateful also that EUROPARC established this initiative on transboundary protected areas, especially expanding it now to the marine protected areas. I think beyond conservation, like you said, Stefania, it's in these difficult times, it's important also for promoting peace and coexistence. So to finish, I think from our perspective, the transboundary protected areas, but more general transboundary marine conservation is something that we can surely do through our common European project and our Green Deal policy. And I think we can contribute to making this happen. So we'll be happy to collaborate with parks under EUROPARC further on this issue. Thanks a lot, and back to you, Stefania.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vedran. Indeed, the work that is doing the Commission now is very, very important. And I remember how difficult it was just a few years ago to speak about biodiversity. It was really a word so difficult to explain apart to DG ENV. And now, finally, it's something that the majority of people understand how important it is, even if a lot of other interest and emergencies are also on the floor, but everything is very connected, as we know. So definitely it's a very important message from the Commission. Thank you, Vedran. And also, so be ready to present projects to support to support your work, the work of marine protected areas and cross-border cooperation. We have more or less half an hour. We are not a lot of people, so I would propose you, if you want, or we can read your questions in the chat, but also we can leave you the floor to ask directly, so to have this last moment together very much more as a debate. Anyway, try please to be concise, so everybody will have the opportunity to express yourself. So we will start with Teresa Pastor, EUROPARC. Please introduce yourself, Teresa, our colleague, and ask your question. Thank you.
Yes, hello. I'm project manager and responsible of the European Chapter of Sustainable Tourism in protected areas in EUROPARC. But formerly, I did a PhD on Mediterranean monk seal, so I know what I am talking about. And that's why my question is, I saw that there's a working group on Mediterranean monk seal. As you said, there are not still monk seals there in the Pelagos archipelago, and I just wanted to know a little bit more about this working group. What is the objective? And I also have another question is, how do you communicate with all the boats that of course cross the sanctuary, the Pelagos Sanctuary, in order to make them understand these binding rules that you have? And the third question is, did you have any, what were the main problems that you had in cooperation between the three countries, especially with Monaco, as not belonging to the European Union? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. Definitely you should join the group, I think. Yeah, so the working group on Monk-Seal is a subgroup of the working group on communication. So about Monk-Seal, the next activities we should implement in the framework of the Pelagos agreement are mainly activities of communication and training. Training of the staff of the marine protected area, of the area in which the Monk-Seal could be back or was observed. And so of course we have also activities about the assessment, the first assessment of the species in the Pelagos Sanctuary. So the Monk-Seal is one of these species, but I would say that all the activities on Monk-Seal are more focused on communication and training. But if you are interested, I can share with you the work plan of the Pelagos Agreement, so you can read those activities. And of course, if you would like to join the group, you can just send me your request. And as for the second question, how can we control this? Is an activity which is guaranteed by the national authorities. So Pelagos has not meanings, has not the way to ensure that the binding measures are respected. The national authorities on their waters do so. That's what the point. And for the third question, I don't remember the question. Sorry for that.
Yeah, it was about the difficulties that you have encountered in cooperation between different countries.
This is a very difficult question. I will say that yes, when we talk about Pelagos, sometimes there are critics, or I have heard Pelagos is not as effective as it should be. We should recall that Pelagos is it's a very unique and original experience in the Mediterranean Sea. So I think we cannot approach Pelagos in the same way we could approach a marine protected area, a national coastal marine protected area. This is the thing. It's an international agreement. So the procedure and the results should be taken into account as being the results of an international cooperation between 3 countries.
Thank you very much. Definitely, we can imagine how difficult it can be to work with 3 different countries. One is not in EU, and our members have the same experience in our network, indeed. And but especially for Pelagos, the fact that it's an international agreement. So if I have understood well, a lot of decisions are taken in at central level. So it's a very complex. It's not on the field or at a regional or local level that is possible to take some critical decisions. So it's very complex. And about this, not exactly similar experience, but in some way a trilateral complex cooperation, I would like to leave Soledad Luna to speak because she has a question. Please, Soledad, introduce yourself because you are also working for a trilateral protect areas.
Thank you, Stefania. Hello with everybody. And yeah, my name is Soledad. I work for a common secretariat for the trilateral Wadden Sea cooperation. And my question is, they're related to the acceptance in the area by the local people. And I wondered why the municipalities, what was the reason why they didn't want to sign this partnership that you are creating? And then I also had another, maybe a little bit connected question, which is also here, we are still discussing about how to implement or how to comply with the goals of the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030. And we're thinking and seeing which are really strict protected areas that we have here, and how do the countries see the Wadden Sea World Heritage also as contributing to comply with their obligations at European level. Do you have a situation like that maybe in your area?
Thank you very much for this question. As for the first question about the signature of the municipality, Pelagos Municipality Charter, there are not municipalities that want not to join the partnership, but the promotion of the activity of the partnership should be implemented in the next months, in the next years, because as I said, for example, for Corsica, sometimes they are very small municipalities, so it's difficult even in the municipality to find a referent, to find someone which can dedicate time to the partnership charter. So the idea is to promote the charter and to implement also the objectives of the charter to insert a few technical and scientific elements in the charter, because right now it's a charter about mainly communication, awareness campaigns, or training, and the idea is now to develop this charter and to create a new tool for the municipalities. As for the second question, this is a very difficult question. I think I'm not the right person to answer to your question. We should ask the parties about the no-take zone. Yes, it's quite difficult for me to give you a correct question on the matter.
Okay, thank you. Vedran, please.
Hi, no, I can make a comment on this because it relates to the goal that we have set as the European Union. Well, in fact, we published a kind of guidance document which we elaborated together with the countries of the EU of how to use and define strictly protected areas. And I mean, in the context of Pelagos, what is most critical is to deal with issues such as underwater noise and ship strikes and all these things. Those are the largest pressures there. And well, for that, we know the tools. So you cannot eliminate underwater noise from the entire area. In fact, with such maritime traffic as we have in the Mediterranean, you can always only work to reduce or to eliminate ship strikes by slowing down. But so I don't think maybe the strictly protected areas are the right or the only tool to deal with that pressure. But for sure, there are some others, and I'm not an expert on marine mammal ecology, but I'm a marine biologist. So I guess that the working groups that you have in the agreement could take a look at the issues such as food and resource depletion for the cetaceans. Do they have enough fish? And in that context, no-take areas we know provide excellent protection and spillover of fish stocks that can be used as food by marine mammals. But also they provide, we know, biggest benefits, but also for fisheries, but for society. So I think in such a big area as Northwestern Mediterranean, there is scope, and there has to be scope to increase strictly protected areas, also to benefit Pelagos, but more generally. So let's see, by the end of this year, we should receive, that's the way it was set up, we should receive the first pledges by the countries on this target. So we will have a better picture of the ambition and perhaps the usefulness for Pelagos. So that's from my side. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vedran. Indeed, very important. Isabel Maus, would you like to share with us your ideas and questions? Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Isabel Maus from Germany, BUND, but also here on part of Coalition Clean Baltic. Yeah, because we've been pushing the matter of transboundary MPAs within the Helsinki Commission for the Baltic Sea, because they, of course, were also not only EU members, but yeah, it's a really high pressure area and a lot of potential for transboundary cooperation. But so far, there hasn't been, as we know, any thoughts on that within HELCOM. So we've been pushing that thought on to the agenda. And that's why my question was how the Pelagos Agreement is interlinked with the Barcelona Convention, for example, because I felt the way of how the Pelagos Agreement works is quite similar to the one how HELCOM is organized. So it would be quite interesting to to get those two ways of working together.
Yes, definitely. How we are linked with the Barcelona Convention. So the parties of the Pelagos Agreement are the parties at the Barcelona Convention as well. Of course, this is natural, and we are linked mainly with the SPARAC. With the protocol on biodiversity of the Barcelona Convention, and in particular, we work with them in the frame of the working groups. They are part of all our working groups. We are linked with them in the framework of the status of the Pelagos Agreement as a SPAMI, as I said, particularly special SPAMI. Sorry for that. Special maritime area of Mediterranean importance. Sorry, all those acronyms are so made me crazy. And we work we participate in a trainings program with the other SPAMI for the exchange of best practices. So currently we work together on the MOXIL team, and on the SPAMI status in two different ways, because Pelagos is SPAMI, but it is also a SPAMI within three SPAMIs. Three other SPAMIs exist. So the idea is to create a framework of coherence in all these action.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask one or two more questions on that?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Right, so this was actually one question which I wasn't sure if I missed it in the beginning. So did you first have the designation of Natura 2000 sites or any other degrees of marine protection, and then continue the work to form this Pelagos agreement, or was it from the beginning planned as a big one marine protected area site?
They were different processes, yes, very different ones.
Okay. And then just one thing for understanding, I think, Vedran, you said that in the beginning it covered more than EU waters, and now the agreement covers only EU waters, which helped in the management of this area. How did that happen? Or I don't know, I didn't follow on that.
Well, yes, I can take it, but also you can complement. I mean, back then there were substantial part of international waters. Of course, Monaco's waters are always out of the scope of the EU, but since the signature of the agreement, if I'm not mistaken, the waters actually by countries declaring full exclusive economic zones, the previously international waters came under their jurisdiction, so they became EU waters. So nothing was reduced. It was always the same area, but now it is fully under jurisdiction. Well, except for the rules that restrict this under UNCLOS or various other things. So that's a bit the answer. So it goes beyond 12 nautical miles, and on the fisheries management, it's completely in EU waters in terms of that the common fisheries policy applies. So all the tools to manage fisheries are there, including to prevent bycatch for these countries to use. So that's the framework.
Okay. And then just to add on that, because I think, well, for our MPAs, also thinking about the Dogger Bank in the North Sea, of course, fisheries management measures are the key to protect these areas. So I was wondering if you've been involved in the Article 11 CFP process of joint recommendations, or have you, I don't know, had any other fisheries measures in the Pelagos Agreement?
Yeah, so the Pelagos Agreement was created in order to prevent and to answer to the threat of the bycatch in the 80s. So it is really the cause, the origin of the agreement, fishing and bycatch. Right now, so the first harmonized measure adopted in the frame of the Pelagos Agreement was the ban of the drift nets. Right now, the Pelagos Agreement responds to the politics of fisheries of the in the Mediterranean Sea. It's aligned with that. Okay. Of course, we take part in different projects in order to European project in order to create clusters between fishermen in Monaco, in France, and in Italy. We worked with them last year, and you know, Monaco has only a fisherman, just one. I mean, it's I would say it's a work with people, with the professional of the, not from a legislation point of view in this phase. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's about communities and the network in the 3 countries, developing a network.
Mm-hmm.
This is the level of implementation of this problem, of this thematic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much also for your questions. From my side, I think that we can close now. If you don't have any question, I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I see the form of to evaluate this webinar, please fill in, because it's very important for us to understand what do you think about our initiatives, how we can improve. Indeed, our idea is to continue this debate about cross-border marine protection. We are looking for new experiences, so we are very happy to, if you propose us to share with us your experience, your stories, please write to me. In case Isabel and Soledad, sure we will keep in touch, and also with other participants that maybe they didn't take the floor, but they are working in some experience that can be interesting to share. And of course, I was also thinking that Pelagos is a sort of umbrella of so many cross-border marine areas that maybe can more easily to find some interest or benefit in our program of transboundary cooperation. So if, again, you need more information or you want to work on that, please don't hesitate to call me and to keep in touch. And now I think that Costanza will receive a lot of applications to become part of the groups, working groups. Definitely would be very interesting to continue to work and to follow and to participate to this very interesting experience. Again, thank you very much to the European Commission to be always so open. Really, I have to say that work with the DG ENV is very a pleasure, because the officers are always very open and willing to work together and to share their thought with us. So thank you again, Vedran, and Costanza, of course. Thank you very much to you. And see you to the next webinar. Keep in touch.